So we'll just get this question done here. So here we're looking at the sine rule again. This time we're looking for a missing side because we have this side, we're looking for this side, we have this angle, we have this angle. So we can see here that we have an angle opposite a side, and here we have an angle opposite a side. So I'm just going to highlight them so that we can see them, because it's very, very important that your angle is always opposite a given side. So in this case, 44 and x will be paired together. And in this case, 38 and 10 will be paired together. Okay, so it's very, very important that you see the link there. It's always the opposite. Okay, so the opposites go together and the opposites go together. Okay, so A over sine A just means a side over the corresponding angle. So in this case, I'm going to put all my unknowns. I'm going to put my x's into the first fraction. So I'm going to start with the blue because the unknown is in the blue. So the x and the 44 have to go together. So they both represent a's. So the side represents x represents a, and the capital A is going to be 44. So I'm going to fill that in. So I'm going to have x here, right? And doesn't matter which one you put as a, it doesn't know, as long as you make sure that it corresponds to the opposite side. So if you put 10 as a, then you have to make sure that the angle for a is 38. Is that right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be. I typically keep it on the left, but if you wanted to, you could put it on the right. Okay. Okay. So that's the first fraction done. The second fraction is going to be the side. So in this case, the side is 10. So 10 has to go on top. So I put 10 in there. All over sine of b, and that's sine of the corresponding angle. So the one that corresponds to 10 is going to be 38. So I can say sine of 38. Okay. And now what I need to do is I've got a fraction equals a fraction. So to get rid of a fraction equals a fraction, we cross multiply, right? So we cross multiply. And what I like to do when I'm cross multiplying is I like to keep all of the unknowns on the left. So if I've got an x there, I'll work out that side on the left first. Okay. So that's going to give me x times sine of 38. Okay. That's going to be equal to the, I'll do it in white, we'll do from 44, sine 44 times 10, so the opposite diagonal. So 10 times sine 44. Okay. So just to reiterate there, we had a fraction equals a fraction. So if we have a fraction equals a fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by the diagonal of the, we need to multiply the numerator by the denominator of the opposite fraction and multiply the numerator by the denominator of the diagonal fraction, right? So we're just multiplying diagonals. So this times this will give us this, and this times this will give us this. And the little trick that I said there is I tend to keep the unknowns on the left-hand side. So if you had said the white part on the left and the pink part on the right, you'll still get the same answer, but I just find it's easier to keep your unknowns on the left. Okay. So if we look at that, we need to isolate the x. So we're looking to get a value for x. So if we're looking for a value for x, then we need to make sure that the x is isolated. So here you can see what's happening. X has been multiplied by sine 38. So x has been multiplied by sine 38. So I'll just highlight that. So what's actually happening here is x has been multiplied by sine 38. So to get rid of that sine 38, I need to divide the left-hand side by sine 38. So if I divide the left-hand side by sine 38, I'll be left with just x. So if I divide this by sine 38, I'll be left with just x. I have to make sure that I do the same to the opposite side. So the sine 44, I divided this side by sine 38, so I have to divide this side by sine 38. So I'm going to divide that side by sine 38. Okay, and that gives me my everything here represents numbers. It's because sine 44 represents a number, sine 38 represents a number, 10 obviously is a number. So I can type all that into the calculator and it'll give me my answer. So I'm just going to type that in and just put the calculator up so you can see. So video. Okay. And again, I'll have to move that side so you can see what we're doing. Okay. So in this case, okay, again, we need to turn on the calculator. This calculator's on. And we need to type this into the calculator. So we know it's a fraction, so we'll start by pressing the fraction button first. Then we need to put in 10 sine 44 as the numerator. So put in 10 sine 44, close your bracket. Go down then and we fill in the numerator or the denominator, which is sine 38, and close your brackets. Okay, so double check that it's correct before you do anything else. So sine 10 sine 44, 10 sine 44 is equal to sine 38. Sine 38. Yeah. So to 44 is the bottom. That means we made a mistake along the way. I'll have to check that separately, right? So if we press or equals to, and it gives us our answer. So you should have got an answer there of 11.283. So I'll just put that in there. So the answer there is 11.283. So x is equal to 11.283.1227. And if they wanted it to the nearest two decimal places, we'll say, right? So if you wanted to give your answer to 2 decimal places, okay, you'd go back to, you draw a line, you look at the number that follows. If this number here is 5 or greater, then the 8 will round up to 9. If this number is less than 5, then the 8 would just round off and your answer would be 11.28, which in this case it is. So the answer in this case is 11.28. If the units were there, if that was centimeters, I put in centimeters. If it was meters, I put in meters, but that's the final answer. And after you do a question like that, you should always look back and make sure it makes sense. You can see here, this is roughly 11, you could say. This side here was roughly 10, so that seems to fit. If you got an answer of 3032, then you'd know that it didn't seem to fit. Okay, so just make sure that you have a quick look back at your question just to see if it fits. So that's that question.